What if you could boil personal growth down to four timeless principles? Principles that work no matter your starting point. Today's guest has done just that, drawing on a lifetime of experience, challenges, and triumphs. Dr. Trunnis Goggins has built a blueprint for clarity and action that he calls the four P's: purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. In his newly expanded edition of the four P's of you, he shows us how to turn potential into performance, and he's here to share the journey that shaped it. Dr. Trunnis Goggins is a transformational speaker, author, and educator dedicated to helping people gain clarity and take action. As the host of the 4Ps podcast and the founder of 4P Group LLC, he spent years teaching the principles that has guided his own life. His work blends personal storytelling with practical frameworks that audiences can apply immediately. Trunnis, welcome to Attention is the Currency.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're so excited to have you here and to hear, because those are things that we're all about as high. Well, a lot of my audience is really high performance entrepreneurs and high performance people. So this is perfect and amazing, and we love learning a lot about your work so far. But we definitely want to hear it from you. And where did the concept of the four Ps come from? Was there a defining moment that sparked?
Yeah. I was in the military. I had a really good life. I've always had a decent life. I was in the military. I grew up with an entrepreneur father. And then I went on after the military, went into education, higher education. So I was teaching colleges and universities here in the United States. One day I got to what I thought was the pinnacle of my career in education. I was actually part of the chancellor's cabinet and all these other things. And I was literally I was depressed. I was miserable in that element. And one day I was driving home and I'm like, what am I doing? This is not what life is all about. This is not what I did. All of those things that I did prior, that's not what I wanted to do. And I teach my PhD is in is nonprofit management, but it's more strategic, the strategic side. So we look at the SWOT analysis and all those other things, strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats. So what I thought was, in order for me to get unstuck, so to speak, I need to bring myself back. And instead of doing, I did a SWOT analysis. We all do that every single day, but I also said, what am I here for? And then I said, I wanted to start living life intentionally because I was living life. You ever seen the movie Forrest Gump?
Yes.
Yes. Let's say in the very beginning of Forrest Gump, there's a feather that just floats around and it just gets pushed by the wind. And with all of the wind and all the things that happen, it ends up landing at Forrest's feet. Forrest picks up the feather, and then it lives, quote unquote, the life of whatever it lived. But it was all by chance. And what I decided at this point is like, I need to be intentional. And so what is my purpose? What am I here for? What am I doing? Okay. And once I reestablished that purpose, then I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. Now, how am I going to get there? That's when that SWOT analysis comes in. And then I wanted to know, is it actually what I want to do? Or is it what everybody else wanted to do? Because see, before I was doing what everybody else wanted me to do. And it wasn't until I was doing what I was passionate about and what I wanted to do where that passion came and where I was like, hey, you know what? I can't wait to get up to see what's going to happen. And that passion helped me go through the persistence. Because you have to realize I was at the height of my career. I was making really good six-figure salary. Everything was going great. And in order for me to get to where I wanted to go, I literally had to reset. So there was a lot of challenges because the income, the new, literally I had to start all over again, not only professionally, but even personally. And so, but that passion of, you know what, I'm on the path of where I want to go. I'm getting ready to get in, and I'm brought ready to achieve my purpose. And that's what kept me going. So those are why the 4 Ps are here. And that was the pinnacle. When you finally got to the point where I'm like, you know what, the hell with this. And once I got to that point where I was like, the hell with this, everything seemed to fall into place.
Well, there's just so many layers to life, and people no doubt forget that money is not the most important thing as well. It doesn't. It's not the full. It's not although we all need it, but it's not the thing that
Right.
fulfills us entirely. So
Exactly. Exactly.
you've said that these principles came from both successes and failures. Can you share one story from each of those?
Wow. Well, successes, I could tell you like a lot of the let's start with the failures. I will start with the failures. The failures were when, again, living life without intent. And when you live life without intent, there's where a lot of the failures come. Okay. If you mean to do something, you're going to be able to control life a lot better. And there were a lot of failures. There were failures personally, there's failures professionally. Personally, I was married a couple times because, you know what, I thought that I was supposed to be. Okay. That was a dumb thing. You know what I'm saying? You're just like, well,
uh,
I'm supposed to do this now. I have to do this now. I have to do this now. And once you start doing what you think you have to do, you're not doing the right things. And it does lead to failures. And again, I wish I didn't do stuff like that, but it happens. Now with successes, I will say what taught me purpose, planning, passion, and persistence more than anything in my professional life was when I joined the United States Navy. The United States Navy is any military is very mission focused. Okay. You are mission focused. You have a job, you have what you want to do. And we know what the end game, we are planning for that end game at the end of whatever mission we're trying to do. In the beginning of every, and there's at the beginning of every day in the Navy, many of the commands will start with their meeting. They'll have what's called the Navy Creed. And the Navy Creed is spoken, and we say who we are, why we are, and what we are going to do to remain who we are. And so, with that, that really taught me right then and there, the purpose, the mission, the goal oriented, living life with intention. And that's where my number one success came as far as the 4 Ps are concerned, is my time in the United States Navy.
yeah. Well, I know the military definitely gave. It was something that I was going to do as a young man, but went in a different direction. But yeah, the strong discipline values. I've got a lot of friends that served over here, and they became very successful in other elements as well after reapplying those principles. So, how did you know these ideas were worth building into a book and movement?
Okay, so one thing, teaching in school, um, there were a couple things that happened. One, and I have it in the book, and I'll share this story, but I still want you to buy the book. Okay,
Yeah.
it's a story of a woman who, please buy the book. There was a story of a student that I had. This was a lot of years back, and it was a first class that my students have taken. I taught this first class. It was an orientation class trying to get students ready. It shows them the basics of what to do in college. So in order to do an icebreaker, I would go around. I had like 20, 23 students in class, and I would point to them. I was like, okay, hey, what's your name and what's your major? And then I would ask them their major, and then I would say, why is that your major? Ran into this woman one time, and I said, hey, okay, what's your major? And she says, I'm in nursing. And so my next question obviously is why? Why do you want to be a nurse? And she said, because my mom was a nurse. So I'm going to ask you again, why do you want to be a nurse? And she goes, well, my grandmother was a nurse. So I'm going to ask you for a third time, why do you want to be a nurse? There was a pause. There was almost tears coming out of this woman's eyes. And she said, I want to be a teacher. Because I pushed her into that. So I just said, what are you doing? You want to be a nurse. And I'm gonna tell you right now, she was an outstanding student. She probably would have been an outstanding nurse. But somewhere down the line, somewhere down the line, she was going to probably have regret. It might have been the day she retires. It might have been 2 years into the nursing, and then she's going to have to start all over again, and all that other thing. But I didn't hear, that wasn't the only person I heard similar stories from. A lot of people are out there walking the streets of Australia, the United States, and they are doing things because of,
Expectations.
because expectations, it's like, I saw this one thing. We have a sport here in the United States, NASCAR. I mean, I know you've heard it, the racing NASCAR. And there's a family here, that everybody in the family, like, they race, and it's just like, and there was a joke one time, and with the family is like, what if one of them wants to become a brain surgeon? What's going to happen to that guy? We all race. You better race. I mean, you always wonder what's going to happen. So a lot of us are living life for other people because it's part of our tradition. So the reason why I wrote this book is, when I wrote this book, I literally had college students in mind, but then I started teaching inmates in prison. And then I looked at the college student and the inmate. Believe it or not, there's not much difference. And I'm not talking that, I'm talking in the fact of, I don't know what I'm going to do now. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do now. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do because that's what society told me to do, or something like that. And at that point, no one really asks themselves what they want. And so when they don't ask themselves what they want, that passion is gone. Because I'm just doing this because I have to do this. Here in the NFL, or here in the United States, in National Football League, there's a football player called, his name is Marshawn Lynch. He's retired now, but one day Marshawn Lynch had to. It was a Super Bowl press conference. He had to show up for the press conference. He had to talk. Now here, you and I am having a great time talking to you, right, Daniel? And so, but Marshawn Lynch did not want to do the Super Bowl press conference, but he had to show up. And if you could pull it up on YouTube, it was probably the funniest thing in the world. He was sitting there at the press conference, and some reporter asked him a question, and he sat there deadpan. He goes, "I'm here because I don't want to get fined."
Yeah.
Then someone else asked him a question. "I'm here because I don't want to get fined." Then and he did it about 5 or 6 times. It's funny how he does it because he's just a funny character. But the thing is how many people are walking through life are here because they don't want to get fined, so to speak. That's what this book is here for. It's to renew that passion and renew that purpose.
Definitely. Well, I'm hanging on every word because I could completely relate to every single story, and I know a lot of other people listening will also relate. And it does lead us into our next question, because we're talking about purpose, and how does someone discover theirs when they feel completely lost in life?
What you want to do you want to do a couple things. What am I good at? What brings a smile into my face? What's something that even during bad times, I'm still going to love doing it? Okay. What professionally, what job is there, or what career is there out there that when I get paid, I feel guilty because I feel like I'm stealing someone's money? Okay. And you have to really sit down. And then the other thing that you have to do to find your purpose is look in the mirror, look at yourself, and you need to say, what do you want? We do that. We are so like when Christmas comes and birthdays and things like that, we'll go to someone and we'll say, what do you want? And then that person will tell them what they want, what you want for Christmas or what you want forever. And you as an individual will break your back. Especially, I'm a father. I remember when my kids were younger. Now I don't because they're too old. But when they were younger, they would say, I want this particular toy. And I know that I would get up early in the morning because if I know it was a popular toy or something like that, and I had to, go to whatever store at 2:00 in the morning to get it, I would do that for them. We don't do that for ourselves. When you look in the mirror and say, what do you want? 9 times out of 10, you probably want what somebody else wants, but you really don't, we don't even ask ourselves that. You don't look in the mirror. If you look yourself dead in the eye in the mirror and say, what do you want? pretty soon you're going to start finding that purpose. What do you want to be? Sometimes what you wanted to be, you knew your purpose at like 12 years old. Sometimes we know it's like, oh man, I really wanted to do that. And then all of a sudden, somewhere life just builds on itself. And then you're way over here and you're looking back like, wow, I really, really should have done that. And we just go off on a tangent, in life. So, I mean, there are different ways to do it, but a lot of meditation, talking to people, getting to know yourself are some steps to knowing what your purpose really is.
I'm feeling that I can. I'll tell you a relatable story after we're finished, because I know that, because we're gonna align and keep going through for the people that are listening. They don't want to hear from me today. They want to hear more of the process, because planning often stops people because they might overcomplicate it. Because I think that's really the next thing in there. So they found their purpose and everything, but they're going to overcomplicate it. What's the approach to not overcomplicating that next step into the plan?
Your plan is not your spouse. Don't be married to that thing. You have to know that under the circumstances right now, this is what we're going to do. However, in order for me to get to where I need to get, I am willing to make the adjustments that I have to make. And when you go into a plan knowing that there has to be room for change, there has to be room for modification, there even has to be moves to like scrap it. I'm not doing that. That's what's going to happen. If you were talking about, my book, the 4 P's of You expanded edition. There are 2 4 P's of You books out there. And when I realized that the first 4 P's of You was not doing what I wanted it to do, I scrapped it. I didn't sit there and say, we're going to push this and push this and push this and push this. I didn't do that. I said, no, we need to do something different. And before I got too deep into it, I made sure I changed it and did it. Right. And there are like some that it's not in print anymore, but there is another book out there called The 4 P's of You that, there you go. I still think you can get it on digital. I'm not sure yet, but whatever. I'll find out when I get that next royalty check. But when, that's what you have to do. You cannot be, like you said, we overcomplicate our mission by over planning. What you need to do is you need to sit there, you need to consider, but there's going to be some things that are going to be happening along the way that you didn't think of. There are going to be some things that happen that you didn't think of in a good way, that happens to you in a good way. And there are going to be some things that happen in a bad way. But the thing is you have to be flexible enough in there, as long as you're still headed to that mission. You got to have enough flexibility so you can go. And in people who overcomplicate plans, they stick to it. I brought up in the book about Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Video was, and I don't think it was in Australia, but it was in the United States.
We had Blockbuster everywhere here and Video Easies.
Okay, so you hack. Okay, yes. Blockbuster. Did you know that the people from Netflix came to Blockbuster and said, "Hey, we got this plan." Yes. But you know what? Blockbuster said, we have a rock solid plan. We don't need you. And they kicked the people out of their office. Now, these are the people at Blockbuster. They were very intelligent individuals. And they kicked out because they were so married to a plan. No, they would never. You're never going to watch. You're going to watch movies on the internet? Get out of here. That's not going to ever happen. Now, that's the only way you can watch movies. And so and now Netflix realizing that, learning that lesson from Blockbuster, now they're even making modifications and doing what they have to do in order to stay relevant.
Yeah, well, I think it was they were going to do mail delivery DVDs instead of utilizing the internet. So it's definitely, and it's really the imperfect action is really where it's at, and being prepared that it won't work out. But at the same time, passion can fade. How do you reignite it when life gets heavy?
That's where you really have to love something. Okay. And again, finding the first step in finding your purpose is finding that passion. If that's something that you love, absolutely things are going to get heavy and there are going to be days that you're going to want to quit. There's no doubt about it. To reignite it, just remember that feeling that where you're going to be, where you're headed, what you want to be known for, what you want to be recognized for, and to realize that some of those challenges, that do play on your passion and do play on that love and that zest for what you want to do, they're going to come out there. I mean, it happens in everything. People who play sports, there's times where, people, there's my favorite hockey team is the Buffalo Sabres. Great. Well, no, it's not a great hockey team. They actually are horrible right now, but they're still, I still love them to death. There was a player for that team. His name was Ryan O'Reilly, and people joked about it, but I kind of caught it like, okay, this is what, this is something that you need to consider. He actually came out and said, he came out after the end of a horrible season that the Sabres had and said, you know what? I lost my love for the game. That literally 9 months later, that same person who lost his love for the game was captain of a Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues. So you have to go somewhere. You have to think. You have to, again, going back to meditating and thinking about it, and then going back and trying to reignite that passion. Maybe do something different. Come up with a different technique. Come up with a different approach. Those are things that help you in, have a different environment. Ryan O'Reilly went from Buffalo to St. Louis and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to have a different environment." If you look at a lot of our world leaders, look at our musicians, the Beatles. The Beatles came out with a whole new sound of music. They went to India. They were really losing their love for music, and they were getting tired of it. They hated the whole sound. Went to India, and then the last 3 albums they had were just outstanding. Because why? They went and they reignited that passion. So sometimes you have to do businesses in order to move forward. What do? They have retreats and things like that. So those are things that you have to do.
Yeah, well, it's always it fades, and I think it's always people looking from the outside in. They think that everything's perfect for someone else. I guess we're all struggling with the same things. And what's the challenge you still struggle with even while you're teaching these principles?
The challenge that I have is like, things don't go. I like things to, even though I just told you don't be married to your plan. I like when,
Yes.
okay, I put this in order, so this should happen. Right. And when this doesn't happen, it really pisses me off.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I know how I
And so
feel it.
you're okay. So you're trying to sit there and like, okay, all right. So it didn't happen. And then you have to come back to the drawing board. And my wife will tell you, there's a lot of days I'll go and talk to her and I'll say, wow. But you know what? The very next day, everything's, back to it. That's one thing you need someone that you can talk to at the end of the day, someone that you can kind of have like just like a summary of, okay, this is what happened good, this is what happened bad. And just sometimes if you just talk to that person who you trust and you rely on, and they may not have to say anything back, but what you're doing is you're speaking freely. You have someone that you're talking to, and sometimes you even come up with the answers while you're talking to that person. And I've seen that happen quite a few. But those are ways that I get through it is literally talking to somebody, relaxing, going on a bike ride, working out, doing something like that.
I talk to the dog, and I have a Chinese Shar Pei, so he never looks impressed with anything I get to say.
Right.
He's a good boy, though. How's your definition of success changed over time?
As I get older, it changes big time. I'm 54 years old, and success is not what you gain, but what you leave behind. And that's where I am in my life right now. Even with the books, with the 4 Ps, with my stories of series and things like that. It is what I want to leave behind with that. I want somebody to pick this book up or these books, and I want someone's life to change. I want somebody to say, wow, that guy, 25, 30 years from now, I hope to be here still. I'll be 80 something, but I want somebody to say, you know what, that guy changed my life. And that's it, and that's what I want. I have grandkids now, and I want them to sit there and say, you know what, my grandfather was a pretty cool guy, you know. Same with my kids and things like that. So my definition of success is, did I leave this world better than, or at least did I leave it, not worse off than it was when I got here?
Oh, definitely. Well, the principles that you're teaching, I wish I learned them as a young in life as well, because I know that we've all made these mistakes. And have you ever had to relearn your own principles the hard way?
Oh, yes. Oh my God, yes. What happens is sometimes, um, when success, and I'm talking not the success that I'm talking about, what I just talked about before, but when other successes come about, it gets to your head. Sometimes success can, sometimes you start reading your own press. And when you do that, you absolutely fall way off track. Sometimes the most successful people in the world are the ones that fall farther off track. They may still have their wealth and stuff like that, but they're way off track because of what they have to do. And sometimes they do have to relearn. They have to reinvent themselves. Great story, and I love using athletes as a great as a soundboard. But Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson 30 years ago, Mike Tyson was sitting in a prison in Indiana, for a pretty serious charge. And now he is, and granted, he had to reinvent himself, totally reinvent himself. And now he is a somebody who's looked at least in this country, as a very well respected individual. I mean, just a couple days ago, or a couple weeks ago, he was in the White House. And this is a person, again, this is somebody who reinvented himself. I was watching a show. I was watching a commercial a couple days ago, and I did not know. My wife had to tell me who it was. It was Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, get out of here. I was like, that can't be her. I mean, last time I saw her, I was like, it was not looking too good, right? But
Yeah.
again, look, she fell off and she reinvented herself. She got back on track, and she got back to her principles. And I think we all do that. And I think success, more than anything, failure is the greatest way to get you back on track. But success is the greatest way to get you off track. So you want to be careful when it comes to success.
That's such a great reminder that life isn't a straight line. It's and people, yeah. Well, you don't have to stay in the place that you're in, and that's
Mhm.
somewhere. If somebody applies the 4 Ps today, starting today, what sort of kind of change can they realistically expect within 90 days?
Within 90 days, if you apply the 4 Ps today, within 90 days, you are going to be like, oh my God, why did I start doing this? I'm going to be honest with you, because sometimes it all depends on, I should say this, all depends on what point you are in life. Okay. If you are at a point right now where you're at a point where you know that you have to make a change and things are going really bad, within 90 days, you are going to have a disciplined path of where you want to go. Okay. You really are. You're going to sit there and say, okay, we have a commercial out for the 4 Ps right now. Read my book and get and do job interviews. Right. Why? Because what you're doing is you're going into a job interview now with, this is what I want to do. And you know what? Not only are you interviewing me for a job, I'm interviewing you because you may not fit my purpose. And that changes the whole dynamic of a job interview. So that's what could happen within 90 days if you're there. If you are like, like I was about 7 years back, be prepared for some pain. Okay. That's another P that I don't put in the book, but it's coming, because what you're going to have to do is now, if you are committed to that 4 Ps, okay, if you're committed to that purpose, there are going to be some changes, and you're going to have to get extremely uncomfortable. Okay. And then in those 90 days, you're going to be sitting there going, you are going to be longing for the life you used to have before, just for a little while. I'm being very honest with you. But after a while, things will start picking up. But you will, and it all depends on what part of you are in life.
How do you recommend tracking the progress without becoming obsessed with metrics?
You know what? Don't become obsessed with metrics. No, but I'm going to tell you, always keep one of these with you, and it is a book. It is I write down, I journal, I definitely take take, I write down things to do, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to be, how this is going to be. I write all of those things down because that does help you in your plan. We have so many things in life that distract us, even right now. I know whoever's watching this podcast right now, you know what? Pretty soon, you're probably watching the podcast right now, and on whatever wherever you watch your podcast, you probably still have that phone in your hand and you're scrolling as you're listening to. You're being distracted. You probably heard every other word, and now you probably stop scrolling because I just brought it up. Okay. And so those are the things that you want to make sure you are writing things that keep you, or doing things that keep you focused. Before you go to bed at night, remember I told you about looking in the mirror to ask yourself what you want. You need to start at the end of the day, you need to look in the mirror and you need to sit there and say, did I do everything I needed to do today to achieve my purpose? And you know what? If you look in that mirror and look at yourself in the face, I'm going to tell you, I don't care what you think. You can't, if you're looking at yourself, you cannot lie to yourself. You can lie to yourself if you don't look at yourself because you can't see yourself. But when you see yourself in that mirror, at the end of the day, did I do everything I was supposed to do to make sure I'm achieving my goals? And those are things that you need to do.
That's perfect advice. And I know that I do. I like to do pen and paper because it clears all the other focus. Because if you try to do anything on a device, it's pinging and distractions. Attention is the currency. So it's how do these principles play out differently in business versus personal life?
In business and personal, okay, so you know what? They really don't play much different at all, to be honest with you. If you apply those purposes, I take a whole person approach to things. A lot of people say, I leave my work at home. That's bullcrap. Or I never take my work. I never take my work I never take my personal life to work. That also is bull. You are a whole person. You're going to bring all of that together. So, but what you have to do is you have to find that right balance. Okay. This is how I have to be here. This is what I have to do here. And you do want to have some certain types of transitions, but usually that purpose, your purpose professionally, is going to affect your personal life. Okay. For example, if my purpose is to be, I am a doctor, but I'm not a medical doctor. Medical doctors. Okay. I want to be a medical doctor. The job is demanding. It is absolutely the most demanding job on the planet. Okay. So what's going to happen at home? Your family has to realize that, at any given time, I have to do whatever. I have to leave. We might have, it's my daughter's 16th birthday, but we have an emergency open heart surgery at the hospital, and you're the only one that can do it. What are you going to do? Well, let me cut the cake first. No, you're going to have to go do this. So there is always going to be a blend. So what you want to do is you want to find that balance, and you have to do that. My son just joined the Navy, and we had a conversation. I got to talk to him just a couple of days ago, and we had that same conversation. We were talking about balance between home and his new profession as a United States sailor. So those are things that you have to. So yes, the purpose is, you have to realize that whatever purpose you select, personally or professionally, is going to affect the other.
And going back to your book, what's new in the expanded edition of the 4 Ps of you?
The expanded edition is actually some things that, as I should have put in the book before, and things that I learned while I was doing the book that needed to be put in the book. And so I had an opportunity to rewrite parts of the book, and that's what I did. Speaking about, I was in your beautiful country of Australia, and I ran into an individual, and I will bring her name up because she's actually going to be in one of my stories of books coming in September. Her name is Tessa Williams. And Tessa Williams, very famous in your country for the profession that she was in before, and now the profession that she's in now and what she does now. And purpose, we should never be married to a plan. We should always make sure that our purpose, we have a little bit of flexibility in our purpose, a little bit of flexibility. And in Tessa, I admired her story. I admired but now she still is doing things that I'm sure her original foundational purpose is there, but she's just doing it in a different way. And she is touching many lives throughout the world with what she's doing. And she's a dear friend of mine. And again, I wanted to make sure that story was brought in, that, purpose can change over time, because you can change over time. And so those are the kind of stories that I wanted to put in there. Also, I wanted to put in stuff about teamwork, and how, just because, a lot of people, like, you ever like jobs and stuff like that. You're an entrepreneur, so you probably don't do this, and you probably think that this is a bunch of BS when they say it anyway. But welcome to the family. That's not your family.
Yeah. I said that to my team.
But I'm just saying, I'm sorry. It's not, because, I mean, I'm not just saying, I am saying it, but, a lot of people say, welcome to the family and stuff like that. And it's just a cliche. And also the other thing is, there's a lot of people that I used to work with that I could not stand outside of work. Yeah. But you know what? If I had an opportunity right now to work with that person, if I needed something done, that same person who I could not stand, I'm calling right now, because I know that person and we work very well together. We may not like each other, but and I wanted to put stuff like that in the book. Don't find a teammate that you love, because that might be the teammate that's going to destroy you, not intentionally, but, it can be done. So those are the things I wanted to add to the book.
Yeah, they're perfect additions. Very highly relatable on that, and I'll let people find out more when they get the book, get their hands on it. How do you hope readers use the book as a one-time read or an ongoing guide?
This is something that, we were talking before, how we can go off track a little bit. This is a book that I really want you to, I really would love to see that book with rabbit ears and folded over and pages missing and highlights in it. That's how that book should be read. This is not a book that I read like, oh, this is a great book, and you want to give it to somebody else. This is a great thing to kind of to be a manual. I have a book like that. To be honest with you, it is not a self-help book at all. It is actually a biography of Ulysses S. Grant. And Ulysses S. Grant was president of the United States here. He was also the general during the Civil War that literally, defeated the South. And here, I live in the South, but they defeated the South and restored order in the Union. But the guy was an absolute drunk. He had so many problems, and this, that, and the other. And sometimes when I'm going through a tough time, I'll actually go back to that. That is the only book, the only biography that I had that I've never allowed anybody else to have, because that is a book that I actually go back to, and it is tore up. It's got coffee stains in it and everything else. I can barely read it, but I still go back to it sometimes. And that's how I want my book to be.
So this book is buy a box and hand them out, not just not lend it out.
Absolutely. That's right. You know what? Yeah. Listen to Daniel, everybody. Buy a box and hand them out. Buy an entire box. I'll give you a discount. So, yeah.
That's perfect. Well, you hear that? Exclusive discounts right here.
There you go.
But I know the messages are amazing, and but what's the next evolution of 4Ps for you personally? Where are you going next?
Well, what I'm doing now is I really want to. I will be promoting the 4Ps, throughout the world. But right now, what I want to do is, like I said, I want to leave something behind. And that's what the Stories of series is all about. We do 2 Stories of books a year. The first one we did was Stories of Children Lost. I lost my daughter in 2015 to a homicide. And what I want to do is I want to help people. Number one, I help parents, other parents like myself that lose children and they die before their time. I want to help them through this book. The other book I have is again, staying on that same thing, is Stories of Veterans in transition. One of the worst things, and this is even in Australia, I know some Australian sailors and some soldiers in Australia. We all have one thing in common, other than the fact that you're one of our greatest allies and in the world. And when I was in the Navy, I got to serve with some Australian troops. But one thing that we have in common as veterans is that transition out of military life. It is a difficult transition. A lot of suicide, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of drug abuse, things like that, and divorce and things like that go on after leaving the military. And that's not only in the United States, but like I said, it's throughout the world. So that's what that, yeah, and that's what that book's there to help. I was just telling you about Tessa Williams. We are doing a book called Stories of Transgression and Recovery, and she's in that book. And that book is literally going out. We are marketing this book to rehab centers. We're going to prisons. We're going to brothels. We're going all throughout the world for people to get this book and to read this book, so they know, how to, how to get through what they have to get through, and those are what we're doing. We have another book coming out. This won't come out until next year. We have a book coming out called Miraculous Recovery. Miraculous Transformation. And those are books that are going to help people who want to go through some changes in life. So that's what I want to do right now. Again, like I said, I'm 54. I'm on the back nine for golfers out there, and I really want to, like I said, I want to leave something behind.
That's phenomenal. And it brings us to our signature question that we ask every guest on the show, and it's the one that we use on the reels. So, Trunnis, if attention is the currency, what should people stop wasting it on, and what should they start investing it in?
Stop wasting it on others' approval. Stop wasting it on the approval of others, because other people, they do not give an F about you. Okay. But start spending that currency on people who love and care for you. That is the best thing. That's the best advice I can give you.
That's perfect. And that brings us to our close. Dr. Trunnis Goggins reminds us that clarity isn't a mystery, it's a skill built one principle at a time. His 4Ps framework is more than a formula, it's a way of living that creates momentum in every area of life. You can connect with Dr. Goggins, get your copy of the 4Ps of You, and hear more of his podcast by visiting 4ps group.com, which we'll put the link in the description. And remember, your attention is your most valuable currency, and spend it wisely. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all in the next episode.